Well, hello there, and welcome to Chat and Channel Session. In today's session, we're going to be talking about perspective and how your current or most frequent levels of light may be impacting more of your perspective than you think in things such as life, manifesting, and healing. Before we get started, let me introduce or reintroduce myself. My name is Danielle, #damsel at 𝑓𝑊𝑙𝑖ght of damseldesigns.com. That's DAMCLdesigns.com. I am a spiritual empowerment coach, energy healer, psychic medium, energy artist, and so much more. And this, as I said, is Chat and Channel Session. In these sessions, my guides, or in some cases, some of you, present me with a topic and we have a stream of consciousness channeling on it. Provided that you are not driving or operating heavy machinery, of course, I invite you to also participate in the chat portion of Chat and Channel Session by leaving a comment or a question if you like, or my favorite way for you guys to participate, which is by you getting out a journal or the notes app on your phone or favorite device and doing some stream of consciousness writing along with me. Now, feel free to come back and do this again during subsequent listenings if you like, as this is timeless material. But myself and those of you who are subscribers, followers, or clients have found that those of you who choose to participate in this way can actually pick up on the light codes in my voice and get your own intuitive insights and hits as you are deep diving and unpacking the material of this session. And I love hearing back from those of you who are able to get yourselves great information with the inspiration of these sessions. So feel free to keep reaching out to me about those insights either in the comments or by getting in touch with me via my website or my social medias, which are also linked in the description and where you can also find sessions and healings with me and more. Now, with all that being said, let's jump into today's topic. As I said, we're talking about how light and the perspective that light can bring can change things for you in terms of your life, your healing, and your manifesting. And funnily enough, the partial inspiration and the analogy that Spirit used to bring up today's topic was in regards to when we are looking in the mirror and doing certain things to our face. And as anyone knows who has put on makeup, whether it's on themselves or others, or tried to pluck hairs out of their face, once you go into a different light after doing that, you can see things that you missed or things that look completely different to how they looked in the other lighting. Of course, this is because, as anyone who works in entertainment or photography will also tell you, lighting is everything. But this plays a role not only in terms of physical lighting. This is also about the lighting of our conscious perspective in the world. And of course, that can shift too. It can shift throughout our journey, throughout us informing ourselves, throughout us healing ourselves, and even throughout our day as we grow and shift and change our moods. And perspective really plays such a role in how we carry out our day, not only in how we see things, but how we play a role in shifting our world and manifesting things to us or for us on an unconscious, most of the time, level. So let's break that down a little bit more. Most of us know and believe in manifestation in some form. However, we are continuously manifesting throughout our life and throughout our day with the magnetization of our soul essence, whether we are consciously manifesting something with intention at that time or not. Manifestation goes on sort of an autopilot. And so if and when we are not purposefully or intentionally manifesting something, we are unconsciously manifesting it from the point of our current light consciousness, from the point of of our perspective, our belief systems about ourselves, and any magnetizations that we may have on our soul from current beliefs or past woundings. This is why I personally find it so important to do the inner work, such as pendulums, as those of you in reality transurfing might call it, or as most of us in my community call it, energy healing, inner child work, past life work, whatever you're most resonant with. But understanding where we have our hiccups and triggers and things that we may be carrying from the past that may be lighting our perspective through a lens that may not necessarily be serving us or serving us anymore. Even if we have something that was, let's say, a positive belief, as we continue to grow, that lens of perspective or that light level may be limiting to us at some point or for certain things that we are trying to manifest. So first and foremost, we want to become aware of when and what we are unconsciously manifesting or allowing to continue in our lives so that we have the power to change and shift that by bringing our light focus and attention and intention into that area if it's something that we no longer agree with and would like to change. So shifting intention is in the fields of energy healing as well as manifesting. And then we want to become aware of how we are manifesting things with intention. Are we still bringing past limiting beliefs to those fields? How are we feeling when we are carrying out manifestation? Are we over exhausting ourselves to perform manifestation techniques or certain tasks? Because all of that can play a part in whether you will receive your manifestation, whether you will call it into being, how long it will take, or if it will come to you in a form that you may not necessarily agree with. And so the first thing my guides and I really wanted to talk about today in regards to a technique that you can do with all of this is something that I wish I knew and mastered so much earlier in my life, because not knowing this or mastering it really played such a role in creating or allowing more chaos and negativity in my life. And this was that in my unconscious allowing or manifestation or unconscious consent, as I like to say when we're talking about quantum consent, I was giving so much meaning to things from my wounded autopilot self that I was actually allowing or calling those things to me. And I know so many of you as clients and fellow spiritual people do this as well, where we have been taught that certain things are negative, either by our traumas or perhaps by the people around us in early childhood or earlier development, that we just believe that those things are inherently negative. For example, you could have had some really bad news come through a phone call for you, and you could still be traumatized of that every time the phone rings, kind of still picking up the imprint of having gone through that, having received that news, the ways that you've maybe not dealt with it or healed it fully. And so you can have a trigger when the phone rings and not realize that this may block you or limit you from receiving positive manifestations that may be trying to come through a phone call. So as I said, this is also where we do the deep work of energy healing those things and working on your nervous system and all the types of things that I could do with you if you feel so called to work with me in terms of energy healing or spiritual empowerment coaching. The form to apply for that with me, by the way, is linked in the description or on my website, 𝑇̓𓋹𓓓𓋴📶.com. But this is also where you start the practice of noticing when your mind starts to tell that story again, or when your nervous system starts to tell that story again. So using the example of the phone call, if when the phone rings, before you even look at it, you start to feel nervous and you start to tell a negative story in your head of, oh my gosh, who is this now? What could they want? What could they want from me? Is it bad news again? Start to listen and see if these thoughts are a part part of you. Now, for some of you, you'll actually hear those thoughts. For some, it may just come through as stress or overwhelm or anxiety or a deep sigh in your body's way of dealing with it. And then you can start to stop those processes. You can start to say things to yourself like, hey, I don't want those things to be true. So why am I playing into the story, into the narrative, into the feeling that would help them to become true? Now, personally, I don't believe that we should completely dissociate in a mentally unstable way and completely deny reality, but we have to ask ourselves, why are we continuing? Or in most cases, if you are self-aware and you start to notice your behavior, why are we preceding the happenings by continuing to tell these negative type stories or these negative type possibilities? So while some people in the spiritual communities completely recommend dissociating from reality, I more so take a middle ground and say, let's first take charge of our emotions and of our narrative and decide, do we want that to be true? And if we don't, let's play with it. Let's say and explore the possibility of stopping those negative thoughts and saying, stop, cancel, clear, delete, and say, that's not true, or that's not true for me anymore. Because you see, those things don't have to be true. Even if you were, let's say, anticipating or expecting a negative phone call and feeling very stressed about it, you can stop assigning it a negative meaning before it's happening or even as it's happening. Stop telling that story, and the universe and a higher power will work with you to stop telling that story. Because the first step in telling a better story, a different story, a story that's more intentional or agreeable to you, is to get into this practice of stop telling the negative ones, most especially stop telling them before the negative thing is even happening. We have to be willing to tell and allow for a different story. So then the story gets to become a manifestation and a mirror in our physical reality. So this is where I really like getting into the practice first of stopping the previous ones. And then if you feel comfortable, giving it over to higher power, seeing what starts to play out even without your intentions, just when you stop telling those pessimistic versions. Then, as you get more adept at this practice and as you get to trust it more because you start to see better and better things manifest for you simply by stopping that track from playing in your head, you can start to create more intentional, positive realities and thoughts that become realities, in my experience. And this is where we use our power, such as the levels of our light consciousness, to shift the light perspective. Just as we would do in the other analogy with the makeup, where if you were looking beat and happy with your look on the lighting of inside the house, and then you go outside in the sun and you look completely different, well, guess what? If you were filming or taking pictures or doing something inside and the makeup looked good to you inside, you have the power to walk back inside. So the same thing in this other scenario with our thoughts. You have the power to control yourself and your story and shift your light to the best of your ability at the time, and allow for the universe to see that and honor that and help you to do the rest. So you can simply stop telling those negative stories before it's happening, especially, or even as it's happening. If you are in the midst of a situation that feels inherently negative to you or has a lot of momentum behind it that could potentially be negative for that situation, simply stand in that moment and tell yourself, I'm not going to assign this meaning. I'm not going to assign this meaning. I am not going to assign this meaning. And allow that to sink in. Allow that to calm your nervous system. Because the moment that we stop allowing our negative resonance or our negative believing or autopilot self to contribute to that narrative, then our emotions can be pulled back from that place. We can calm down a lot easier, and we can stop giving power to that experience, even if it is happening in the moment. Because once we stop allowing the autopilot meanings to take power and control, or the negative momentum meanings to take power and control, then we can step into that neutral space, that 0 point space. And then eventually we get to that next place where we can say, well, instead of the worst case scenario happening, what if it means nothing? Or what if something good happens instead? What if this is good news on the phone? What if it's just better than I expected? And then using all those things as stepping stones, also bearing in mind that the steps do not necessarily need to be linear. You can, depending on who you are and how you resonate, jump from bad news to good news. Not everyone does. Some people need a medium point in the middle before they get to that great news. They need to just get, let's say, a few neutral or semi-positive phone calls before they start to drop the trigger of negative phone calls and expect for and allow for the positive ones. Now, I know we've gotten quite deep here into metaphors, but obviously you can transplant this situation into anything that gives you stress or you find that you have negative momentum in your perspective of life. So this could be things like opening the mail, whether that is physical mail or emails. This could be things like text messages, especially if you've had, let's say, abusive relationships with people, whether that is romantic relationships, family relationships, relationships with your boss or colleagues, and you have anticipated continuing to receive overbearing or overwhelming information through your messages, whether they be physical mail, texts, or emails, then you can start to reset that paradigm so that you just stop the process of continuing to assign it the negative or overwhelming meaning that your body and soul has become so habituated to. And this, by the way, is something that takes practice in my experience. So be gentle with yourself. You may not necessarily master it on the first or second go around, or you may master it in one area of your life and find that it's more difficult in the other areas. That's simply based on you and your unique soul's imprint and vibrance at this time and where you may be resonating also in terms of your healing. But this technique is something that I have found that everyone can do regardless of where they are in their current healing. Obviously, it's going to work better for some than others at first, but in the meantime, before or as you're in the middle of such deep healing works on your soul or on such deep works as expanding and growing your consciousness or your spiritual gifts, you can do things like this so that you can get more in that habit of shifting your own light and perspective to that neutral place first, and then to the places where you're putting something positive in the place of something where you maybe anticipated or expected or allowed a negative. And this is particularly helpful for those of you who have found yourself, like me and many of my clients, in certain negative feeling karmic loops or things on your soul that you've been working for quite a while to heal. Especially if you've ever struggled with anything within the nervous system, such as trauma, PTSD, or CPTSD, that autopilot mechanism is going to be louder for you, and it's going to take more control over telling those stories in ways and narratives that you probably don't agree with on a conscious level. This also speaks to the fact that once we start trying to tell new stories for ourselves, if we are, let's say, telling a very positive story in thought or in scripting or in journaling, in vision boarding, whatever the tool is that you're using to try to manifest something different in your life, if you're doing that in an exasperated way, where you're like begging for the thing to come into your life, or at the same time as you're intending that or calling it in, you're also really stressed out about what if it doesn't work out, that may not be the best practice for you. It may not be the best technique, or that may not be the time to do a manifestation for that. Because even if and when it comes through, it can come through maybe in a more chaotic way rather than more an optimal way like you would want. So this is the time where I like to ask people to step back and step into something like healing or calming themselves first, or working with a practitioner like myself, so that when you go towards that manifestation, you are doing so from a place that is more balanced in your energy field with the conscious intention that you are writing, speaking, vision boarding, what have you. And whether you are someone who wears makeup or not, I want you to think back to this funny little analogy, one of the many I know that Spirit brought up for today, in terms of walking inside or outside and looking at that face with makeup on it and seeing it differently in the different lights. Because I want you to remember that no matter where you are in life or what you're going through, you do have the power to walk in and out of those different light streams energetically in terms of dimensional level or resonance level. So if you are in a situation where you just cannot currently see it in a different way that you know a different perspective would probably help with, you can stand there, silence yourself, and ask Spirit or your higher power or your higher self, the guides you work with, whoever, show me a higher perspective on this. Show me a more aligned perspective on this. Show me the perspective that's going to help me get closer towards the outcome that I am striving for. And see what comes. The message that comes may be you doing something like picturing yourself literally stepping to the left or stepping to the right and standing in a semi-different light, because even if you're in the same room, one little shift physically and energetically can change a lot. So do something little like that, which other people will probably not even notice or care what you're doing. And you assign that the positive meaning of helping you to shift your perspective. If you can, walk through a doorway or walk up and down a flight of stairs, whatever's near you, and say, when I walk in here, when I walk through here, when I walk over here, I am stepping more into the version of me that gets the results that I am desiring. And then get clear on what you're actually desiring and what you're allowing based on your past beliefs. So I hope that this has really inspired you today. I hope that these are tools that you think about. Let them sink in and see how they best fit in your life. Remember that with this or any channeling or spiritual teaching, take what resonates and leave the rest. See how it fits into your spiritual practice or routine and amend it to work for you and the new and growing, shifting situations in your life. If you need some help in doing that, as I said, I offer spiritual empowerment coaching and energy healing in the fields of quantum, 𝑓, and shamanic. We also do things like soul retrieval, inner child and past life healing, consciousness and spiritual gift expansion, and so much more. So if you are interested in one of those select one-on-one spots with me, there is an application form that is linked either in the description or on my website, Damsel Designs, DAMCLdesigns.com, to get in touch with me so we can have a chat and see if we are a good fit to build you a custom quantum container. If you would like to work with me in terms of a session first, you can check out quantum and Akashic Records reading sessions and other types of spiritual offerings that I have on my website available now, damseldesigns.com, where you can read more, book and purchase. And if you would like to start off with a session and then expand into energy healing or coaching, we can hook that up for you too. On my website, you'll also find things like energy art and digital downloads, enlightened merch, and other ways that I use my gift. I would love to work with you if you feel called. But if not, I am so happy that you are here today, and I look forward to the ways that you use this tool and this technique to empower yourself in your life and create more of the life that you consent to. Because with more of that and with more light in your world, that's what helps us raise the light quotient on this planet for others too. So you doing your work also helps others. Always remember that, because I know that so many of us in the spiritual community feel like we're here to help others, and we are, but until you can really also help yourself, honor yourself, or master yourself, the ways that you can help others tends to feel limited or work in cycles of burnout. And my passion is stopping that process for myself and for my clients so that we can enjoy the lives that we have as we are also participating in those lives that help the lives of others. I am so glad that you are doing that in your own way too. I trust that you are, even if you don't see the perspective or the ways that you've been doing that yet. I know that you bring a lot of light to the world just by being you, and I'm so glad that you were here with me today. I would love it if you followed or subscribed to the podcast wherever you are listening, or to my YouTube channel, which you will find the backlog of chat and channel sessions podcasts as well. My YouTube channel is at 𝑑enlightenededits. You will find that linked somewhere if you are listening on another platform. And there is also a chat and channel sessions playlist linked, so you can listen to all the previous timeless channelings as well if you would like. I would love for you to be a subscriber or a follower on all those platforms, and you can also find me on the daily on Instagram at 𝑑enlightenededits. I would love to hear your feedback if you are so inclined in taking part of the chat portion of chat and channel session, and I hope to see you next time. If you would like to support the podcast in reaching more people, you can also find donate to support the channel links below. With that, I am going to close this chat and channel session and send you off into your day or into your journaling and into the many ways that I hope and trust you will use this technique to better your life. Be blessed with love, light, and light codes. Love, Danielle. #damsel at 𝑑enlightenededits of damseldesigns.com.